Every January, streets across the Philippines explode with color, dancers in masks, drums beating, people shouting Viva in celebration of saints. But what if I told you many of these festivals are actually older than Christianity itself? Beneath the Catholic names lie ancient rituals, the heartbeat of a pre-colonial culture that just refused to die. The Philippines is often called the most Christian nation in Asia. Every year, millions join fiestas in honor of saints: the Sinulog in Cebu, the Ati-Atihan in Aklan, the Dinagyang in Iloilo, the Obando Fertility Dance in Bulacan. To outsiders, these look like Catholic celebrations, but to historians, anthropologists, and locals who've kept oral traditions alive, they tell a deeper story, one that began long before Spain ever arrived. Because hidden behind the statues and prayers are echoes of the old gods, the old dances, and the old beliefs of the ancient Filipino world. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they quickly realized one thing: Filipinos love to celebrate. Every harvest, every victory, every change of season was marked by feasting, dance, and ritual. These events were not just entertainment, they were acts of worship. In pre-colonial times, communities gathered to honor Anito, or spirits, and Diwata, the deities of nature. Offerings of food, drink, and music were made to ensure good harvests, safe voyages, and healthy families. When the Spanish missionaries began converting locals, they saw these festivals as opportunities. Instead of banning them completely, they rebranded them. The Anito were replaced with saints, the Diwata became angels, and the ancient harvest feasts were renamed as fiestas. But the spirit of the old rituals, the music, the dance, the joy, remained purely Filipino. One of the most famous festivals, the Ati-Atihan of Kalibo, Aklan, is often called the mother of all Philippine festivals. It's celebrated every January in honor of the Santo Niño, the Holy Child Jesus. But its roots go back far earlier, to a time when Aklan was home to two groups, the native Ati people and the Malay settlers who later arrived. So, according to oral legend, the Ati once helped the Malay newcomers during a famine. In gratitude, the settlers painted their faces black with soot, danced, and offered gifts, a gesture of friendship and respect. Over time, this annual Thanksgiving, evolved into a ritual dance honoring the Ati. When Spanish missionaries arrived centuries later, they simply added the Santo Niño image to the celebration, giving it a Christian label. That's why even today during the Ati-Atihan, you'll see both Catholic icons held high, and people covered in soot, dancing to ancient drum beats. It's honestly the perfect symbol of how Filipino culture blended old and new, without losing its soul. In Cebu, the Sinulog Festival also honors the Santo Niño. But historians note its dance pattern, a rhythmic 2 steps forward, 1 step back movement, existed long before Christianity. This step, actually mimics the flow of the river currents, a motion used in pre-colonial water rituals. When the Santo Niño was introduced in the 1500s, Cebuanos merged the old ritual dance with new devotion. That's why even now Sinulog Chant, Pit Señor, comes from the older Visayan phrase Sangpit sa Señor, meaning call to the Lord. It's not purely Spanish, not purely native, it's both. Sinulog shows that Filipinos didn't simply replace their old beliefs, they transformed them, and in doing so, made Christianity their own. In Bulacan, the Obando Fertility Dance draws thousands of couples praying for children. They dance through the streets honoring 3 saints, San Pascual Bailon, Santa Clara, and the Virgin of Salambao. But before Spain, This same region held fertility rituals dedicated to Linga, a goddess of creation and harvest. When missionaries saw the devotion to Linga, they replaced her with Saint Clare, and allowed the dance to continue under a Christian name. The rhythm stayed, the song stayed, even the intention stayed, only the faces of the gods changed. That's why anthropologists say the Obando dance is a living bridge between two faiths, a pre-colonial fertility ritual reborn as Catholic prayer. Every May, the town of Lucban, Quezon transforms into a feast of color for the Pahiyas festival, honoring San Isidro Labrador, the patron saint of farmers. But long before Spanish saints, ancient Filipinos already gave thanks to the spirits of rice and abundance. They decorated homes with grains, fruits, and woven leaves, symbols of gratitude. When Spain came, these offerings were redirected to San Isidro, but the practice itself was never European. It was Filipino, a celebration of harvest, earth, and survival. Pahayas reminds us that the Philippines didn't learn Thanksgiving from colonizers. It had its own version long before Christianity arrived. In Marinduque, the Moriones festival reenacts the story of the Roman soldier Longinus, who pierced Jesus' side at the crucifixion. Participants wear colorful wooden masks and armor, parading through the streets. But before Spanish rule, Filipinos already performed ritual dramas with masks, often to represent spirits or ancestors. Anthropologists believe the Moriones adapted that older form of mass storytelling, merging it with a Catholic narrative. The result? A festival that looks European in costume, but Asian in heart. Even beyond Catholic feasts, many indigenous festivals today preserve older animist traditions. The Kadayawan Festival in Davao, for example, is rooted in pre-colonial Thanksgiving rituals to honor Manama, the creator, and nature spirits. Though it's now a modern city celebration, it still reflects the same values: gratitude, abundance, and harmony. Similarly, in the Cordillera region, harvest festivals like the Beñas and Punuk are still performed, just as they were centuries ago. These remind us that Filipino spirituality didn't vanish, it adapted and endured in local customs. Spain tried to Christianize every aspect of life, but fiestas proved impossible to erase. Why? Because they were tied to community and joy. For Filipinos, celebration was never seen as a sin but rather as a form of thanksgiving. So instead of turning their backs on Christianity, they went ahead and reshaped it. They filled it with song, movement, and meaning that, truly came from their own soil. Even the word fiesta took on a new definition here, not just a solemn ritual, but a lively reunion of body and spirit. Listen closely to a Filipino fiesta, and you'll hear 3 layers of history. The drumbeat, the oldest sound, echoing tribal rituals that honored ancestors. The chant, part Spanish, part native, a language born from survival. The joy, unmistakably Filipino, a celebration of life that refuses to fade. This mix, half ancient, half colonial, is what makes Filipino culture unique. It's not imitation, it's transformation. While Spain used religion to conquer, Filipinos used celebration to resist. By preserving their rituals through fiestas, they kept their connection to ancestors and nature alive, even under colonial rule. Each dance step was defiance, each drumbeat whispered, "You can take our land, but not our joy." That's why, centuries later, fiestas still define the Filipino spirit: resilient, communal, joyful despite hardship. The Filipino festivals older than Christianity remind us that faith and culture don't always vanish, they evolve. Long before cathedrals, Filipinos were already singing, dancing, and giving thanks to the heavens. When colonization came, they didn't surrender their traditions, they hid them in plain sight, inside church walls, under saintly names. So, every time you see the Sinulog dance, hear the Ati-Atihan drums or watch couples dance in Obando, remember, you are not just witnessing Catholic devotion, you are witnessing the survival of an ancient Filipino soul.